The town of Ash Hollow had always been a place where shadows whispered louder than the people who lived. But nothing stirred its dust-choked silence like the story of Cole Maddox, the rancher who vanished at midnight, leaving behind a mystery that outlived every man who had ever known him. Cole was a quiet giant of a man, broad-shouldered, sun-baked, with a voice that rarely rose above a murmur. But when he spoke, even the wind stopped to listen. Folks said he was born with an old soul, the kind that didn't belong entirely to this world. After the war took half the men from Ash Hollow and the drought took the rest, Cole worked the land alone, mending fences with hands scarred from battles no one else understood. He lived miles from town, at the end of a thin dirt trail no one traveled at night, not because of danger, but because of a strange heaviness that settled there after sunset. Some said it was the land grieving, some said it was waiting. And Cole, well, Cole never seemed afraid of anything except what he carried inside. On the night he disappeared, the moon hung over his ranch like a silver blade, and a cold wind slipped between the pines as if warning the land to brace itself. Earlier that day, Cole had ridden into town, bought a new pair of boots, paid off months of debt, and left his horse tied outside the saloon without a word. He walked to the sheriff's office, signed his name in the ledger, something men usually did only when leaving town for good, and then vanished back into the dusk. At 11:50 p.m., his nearest neighbor, Old Man Riggs, woke to the sound of heavy boots thumping across the dirt outside his cabin. Slow, deliberate, measured. Riggs lit his lantern and stepped to the window, expecting to see Cole on his way home. But there was no one. Only footprints appearing fresh in the dust as if someone had passed seconds earlier. 10 minutes later, the same boots echoed across the Maddox ranch, then stopped at the barn door. The lantern inside flickered to life. No one saw Cole again. What people did see was his horse, saddled and ready, standing alone in the corral the next morning with its reins, dragging like it had walked for miles without a rider. The boots Cole bought the day before were gone. His house was undisturbed. And in his barn, only one thing seemed out of place, a faint trail of dust footprints that stopped abruptly, as if the wearer had simply stepped out of existence. From that night forward, the townsfolk swore that every midnight, the sound of bootsteps echoed across the plains, slow, steady, and circling Cole's ranch like a soul searching for what the world refused to return. Some said he was haunting the land, others said he never truly left, and a few whispered that Cole Maddox had made a bargain with something unseen. But the truth, buried beneath dirt and silence, was far stranger than any of them knew. And if you're still here, listening, following the trail of this story, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because the midnight mystery of Cole Maddox only gets deeper, darker, and far more real in Chapter 2. They say the dead keep quiet, but the boots outside Ash Hollow never did. For weeks after Cole's disappearance, the town grew restless as the midnight steps became part of their lives, always starting the same way, one slow tap on the dirt road, then another, forming a rhythm too heavy to belong to any living man. People locked their doors tighter, lamps burned longer, children were told not to speak his name after dark. But fear has a strange way of digging into the heart, and soon the mystery became impossible for the townsfolk to ignore. It was young Lacey Turner, the blacksmith's daughter, who first noticed something no one else had. The boots didn't just walk, they followed patterns. Sometimes the steps circled the old well near the church, sometimes they paused outside Widow Harker's porch as if listening, and sometimes they stopped right at the sheriff's office door, waiting there for long minutes before fading into silence. Sheriff Boone, a man twice as stubborn as he was brave, refused to believe in ghosts. He insisted it was someone playing tricks, someone wanting attention, someone stirring fear for their own gain. So one midnight, armed with lanterns and rifles, Boone gathered a group of men to follow the sound. They waited behind the saloon, breath frozen, eyes sharp in the dark, until the first boot step cracked like thunder through the silence. Then another, coming from the road leading out of town. The men raised their lanterns and followed the sound. The dust beneath their boots swirled with each step, but ahead of them, the road remained empty. Yet the footprints appeared, one by one, forming in the dust as if an invisible figure walked before them. They followed the trail all the way to the Maddox ranch, where the footprints stopped right at Cole's barn door. The lantern inside flickered to life, though no one had touched it. Sheriff Boone, rigid with disbelief, pushed the door open. What they saw inside chilled them to the bone. The old barn was colder than any winter night, and there, hanging on a nail, were Cole Maddox's boots, the same pair he bought the day he vanished. But they weren't still. Dust fell from them. The leather creaked. And in the dim lantern light, it looked as if the boots had just stopped walking. Boone reached out, hand trembling, and touched the leather. It was warm, warm like a man had been wearing them seconds before. From that night on, Ash Hollow stopped searching for a living man and began fearing something else entirely. Some believed Cole had wandered into a place between worlds, trapped in a loop he could never break. Others thought he'd returned from something dark and unforgiving, his spirit pacing the land he refused to abandon. And a few, the oldest ones, whispered that the land itself had claimed him, turning him into its eternal guardian. Now, whenever travelers pass Ash Hollow and stop at the old saloon, the locals tell them the same warning. If you hear boots at midnight, don't look outside, don't answer, don't call out, because the rancher who vanished didn't go quietly, and he ain't done walking. If you want more haunting stories like this, mysteries that grip your chest and keep you awake long after the lights go out, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because what's coming next will make even the bravest heart hesitate before opening a door after dark.